So homework day 20, number 19, has us drawing a graph using the x and the y intercept. So on those previous ones we found the x and y intercept, right? We made our table, and if we wanted to find the x intercept, we put 0 in for the y value, right? So we would have had 3x plus 2 times 0 equals minus 6. If I solve that, that's 0. I'm going to divide by my 3, and so what is my x-intercept going to be?
3. Negative.
Whoops.
Oh.
Negative 6 divided by 3 is?
2.
Negative 2, right? So negative 2 is going to be my x-intercept. My y-intercept. My y-intercept is when I put 0 in for the x. So I'm going to say 3 times 0 plus 2y equals negative 6. And so that's going to be 0. I'm going to take negative 6 and divide it by 2, which gives me negative 3, right? So, these ones have nice whole number answers. I can just go ahead and plot those. My x-intercept is negative 2, so on my x line, I'm going to mark where negative 2 is. My y-intercept is negative 3, so on my y line, I'm going to go down to negative 3. Now normally I like to have 3 dots, but in this case we're just going to use those 2 dots. We're then just going to connect those 2 dots to draw our line. So number 20 there says we have the equation 2x minus 5y equals negative 5. This is what they call standard form when the x and the y are on the same side instead of having it solve for y like all those other ones were. And that's why we use a different method to graph that. We're going to use our x and our y intercepts. So if we put 0 in for y, 0 in for y, what's going to happen?
What is that going to be?
So it's just going to be that fraction, negative 5 over 2.
Oh, okay.
Right? We can't simplify that, just negative 5 halves. Then we're going to do our y-intercept. So for our y-intercept, we're going to put 0 in for x. And so y is going to equal...
1? Negative 1?
Nope, you're right the first time because I have a negative over a negative, so it's going to be a positive 1, right? Now, on the x-intercept, remember that tool I was showing you that looks something like this and you could click on it and it would plot the point? We have to do that when we have a fraction.
Oh, okay.
So if you have a fraction, you're going to have to type it in as an ordered pair. Negative 5 halves and 0. And you're going to have to let the computer plot that one. Now it's going to plot it at negative 2 and a half because that's what negative 5 halves is. So halfway between the negative 2 and negative 3 is where your dot's going to show up. If I could get it halfway, it doesn't want to quite go where I put my dot. But just put it halfway between the negative 2 and negative 3, but the computer would really plot that one for you. Your y-intercept is 1. That one is easy to do. We can put that one on there. So right on your y line up at 1. Now we have our 2 dots. We can go ahead and draw our line, if I could draw straight. Got that one on there?
Yep.
Alrighty. And so then the last one here, it doesn't let me slide the board too far since it's way at the bottom. Notice what looks different between the previous two that we did and this one. What looks different on that equation?
You got 0.
I got 0 and this 8 is on this side. So before we do anything, we need to move this over here so we have it in standard form. So we're going to add our 8 and move it over there and use 3x plus 2y equals 8. Now we have it in the right form. Now we can find our x and our y intercept. So if we're going to find our x-intercept, we put 0 in for
X.
If we
Or
want
0.
if we want to find our x-intercept, we put 0 in for
Y.
y. So 3x plus 2 times 0 equals 8. What's going to happen with that one?
I'm going to cancel that out. Divide it by. Bring your 3 over, and that's it.
And I'm going to get 8 over 3, right? 8/3. That's another one I'd have to use my plot point tool on. And my y-intercept, putting 0 in for my x.
Before.
Would be 4. So this one we're going to just estimate 8/3 is 2 2/3. The computer would put it on. You'd put it in as 8/3 and 0. We're just going to estimate 2 2/3 is right before the 3. My dot doesn't want to go where I want it to. 2 2/3, so right before the 3. And then my y-intercept is up at 4. We can put that one on. And now we have our 2 dots. Now we can draw our line. So now that should be the end of homework day 20. So they had us find just the x and y intercept on the previous 3. Then they used that so that we could graph our line if it was in standard form. Find our x and y intercept, put our 2 dots on, draw our line.